Welcome to The Kingstonian, a podcast that profiles people who are passionate about what they do for a living, what organization they belong to, or the community they are a part of. Here is your host, Dave Cunningham.
Thank you, Steve. Hello, everyone, and welcome. In this episode, I sit down with Leo Lund, a longtime member of the Canadian Armed Forces, a dedicated volunteer, and the current past president of the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 560 here in Kingston, Ontario. We'll talk about Leo's 3 decades in uniform, life after service, and the role the Legion continues to play in supporting veterans and the wider community. This episode is being recorded in late November 2025. Here is my conversation with Leo Lund. Leo, it's great to have you, and I thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me there, Dave.
You are the past president of Branch 560, but before we get into all of your work with the Legion, let's talk about your 30 years in the Armed Forces. What was your trade?
I was considered a communications researcher, but it's been since renamed to SIGINT specialist. And my role was to practice communications and such in the intelligence community.
So that would involve working at a computer?
Working at a computer.
Okay.
Working at a computer. Or in my case, I spent the majority of my career working in the field in an electronic warfare unit here based in Kingston.
Okay, I know that people listening to the program who may not have any military background or know someone in the military are always impressed with the names that are given to these various positions because sometimes they don't really describe what the job does. Yeah. And so I thought we'd try to figure out some of that as we go along here. So is that something that you did for the full term of your service in the military?
Yeah, that's correct. All 30 years.
Doing the same sort of thing?
Doing the same sort of thing.
So when you're in the field doing what you do in your trade, obviously you're not working at a computer.
No, we tend to drive around in trucks or armored vehicles. Our main role is to find the enemy communications and see if we can exploit them in any way. Or on the flip side, see if we can kind of attack their communications and prevent the enemy from using their own
communications. Okay. So you probably have tablets or something like that when you're in the field, in the trucks.
Oh, yeah. Still all computer-based, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So most of us who listen to the news hear all kinds of stories, particularly lately, about the use of drones or missiles or satellites in warfare these days, and I imagine that's an area that was part of your time in the service, is working with that sort of thing, although drones are fairly recent, I would think.
The drone warfare aspect has really came to fruition probably since 2022, the Ukraine conflict. Mm-hmm. It's demonstrated that it doesn't take much to keep an adversary at bay when you've got drones flying around the battlefield that are armed, keeping an eye on, surveilling. So yes, it's really come a long way.
What's the relationship in warfare in general between having bodies out in the field versus having all of these things flying overhead and attacking or defending from them?
Oh, that's a tough question. Having not lived it, right. but knowing what I know so far of it, it sounds like a very horrifying experience for anybody to be in the trenches and to be hearing these sounds flying overhead. You know that you're going to be targeted.
Do you anticipate fewer soldiers in the field if you've got more of these drones that you can manipulate to do all kinds of things a lot of people never envisioned them to be able to do?
I don't think I'd see less people in the field. I think I would see people adjusting their tactics on how they set out in the field. Different kind of protection, as we've seen by that conflict. A lot of the Russian units, or even the Ukrainian units, are using tanks with coop cages on them to kind of like take the main blast. A lot of these drones, they're employing a lot of like cables and stuff like that over top of trenches to try to stop the drones before they get to the people. But yeah, if you're caught out in the open, it's you really got to be lucky, I think, in the area of drone warfare, and it's only getting more sophisticated.
Do you have a sense as to where this is all going? The sophistication of these things?
I wouldn't say I have a sense. The Terminator kind of comes to mind in Skynet.
Yeah, we don't want too many Arnolds roaming around the field of battle.
Not so much the time travel aspect of it, but just with the progression of AI, who knows where this could go?
Exactly, yeah. That's getting harder and harder to predict when you're talking about AI. Now, you signed up for the forces back in Kamloops, British Columbia, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
And what sorts of cities have you had the opportunity to visit over Canada in terms of where you've been posted?
Oh, actually, I've been very limited by my posting experience. I've only been posted to Kingston and Ottawa.
That's it?
That's it. That's my particular trade. We only had those two positions for us at the time. It's since expanded to the coast if I was to go Navy, but I always got seasick, so I kind of avoided that.
That poses a problem.
Plus, Kingston was the only place that had a field unit for my particular trade, so I frequently tried to get back here all the time. So that's why I call Kingston home now.
Now, at one particular point, members of the military used to be moved around, and I forget, was it every 3 years at one point, like early on?
It varied.
It
depended on whether or not somebody was going to get promoted, whether they needed the expertise in a certain area. My first tour down in Kingston was 8 years long. Then usually the minimum is 3 years.
Yeah, okay. Now, we sort of separate tour postings with tours. So tours are typically shorter term, but some of them can be extended for whatever reason. What sorts of tours have you been sent on during your career?
Through my career, I did my first tour up in the Arctic in a station called Alert, the most northerly habited community, I guess, if you can call it that, in Canada's Arctic. So I did 6 months there, and it was a full 6 months. There was no break, so you stayed up there the whole time. I've been to Bosnia. I did a 6-month rotation into Bosnia for the ISAF mission.
Which is what? ISAF is?
International Security Assistance Force. It was a NATO
multinational.
Yeah.
Okay.
So kind of keep the peace over there at that time. Yeah, that was quite an interesting tour. Yeah, I got to see a lot of Bosnia throughout that tour, and also 9/11 happened while I was on my last week there as well.
Mm-hmm. And you were in Afghanistan?
And then I did Afghanistan. I've been to Afghanistan 3 times. Rode a 0 into Opathina, which is in Kabul. Then I went back to Kandahar twice in 2007 and 2010. Both 6 months tours. And then a couple in between trips there as well, just to go help them out with some stuff.
No boring assignments there.
No, it was never a dull moment.
One of the things I wanted to chat a little bit about, and in talking to other military folks, is that once you have served with a group of people, that the relationships and the friendships continue even after you've retired. Fair statement?
Oh, that's a fair statement.
What is it about that friendship that a civilian might not understand?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I think sometimes the comparison can be made to anything. Like it's all about the team aspect of it, and just sometimes you just get into that. What other people are talking about type of thing. So when I explained to somebody I was in this place, like Masamgar, Afghanistan, other veterans will know right away where you're at, whereas some civilians might not know that. Yeah. And that's how we talk. I remember watching a podcast of Don Cherry, and they're telling old stories, and I kind of look at that the same. They were talking stuff that nobody else would know.
Yeah. So that's something that you can relate to other people with.
Yeah.
Just those sorts of stories, yeah.
And it's not just the tours either. It's just the going through boot camp, knowing what kind of time you had there, your leadership training. And nothing brings people closer together than winter warfare.
Yeah. I can't even imagine that. You retired, about 5 years ago from active service?
Yeah.
And you chose to make Kingston your home. What was it about Kingston that you liked?
I thought Kingston was a nice city. It had pretty much everything that anybody could possibly want, as far as nightlife, as far as activities, shopping, that kind of stuff. And it also, the lake is beautiful. So it just overall, Kingston was just a really nice city to settle down in. I'm from the middle of nowhere, BC. Really, yes, I got recruited in Kamloops, but I'm from a little logging town called Quesnel, BC, and yeah, it's 8,000 people, and if you like trees, there's lots of those.
Lots of varieties of trees, yeah. One of the things I've always thought about is that if you're a longtime resident of a particular community, there are certain aspects of that town or city that you don't really know too well, you don't think about, but other people from outside come in and say, you've got something special here. From a military perspective, so we all know that there's a base in Kingston. It appears to be a pretty big base. It occupies a good chunk of the city. From a military perspective, what does Kingston have that people living here as civilians might not know?
Oh.
That's special from a military perspective.
I think it's mostly history. With the RMC being here, Fort Frontenac, Fort Henry, Kingston's always been known as a military town. Was, if I remember correctly, either a home station for RCHA artillery. And a lot of the pictures in this particular Legion branch have a lot of historical pictures of Kingston back in the day, of all the units that passed through Kingston on their way overseas. Mm-hmm. So, military-wise, it is a military town. I never really looked at it that way. I just like the place, and it wasn't like when we did our training. Kingston itself is kind of small for us to do our field training, so we spend a lot of time going to Gagetown, Petawawa, Borden, because they're a lot bigger land-wise bases, just smaller towns that you're dealing with. But so that's pretty much it. It's just the historical aspect is the biggest thing about Kingston.
Now, you still work as a civilian employee for a contractor that's based on the base.
That's correct.
And I'm just curious, as somebody who's still involved in one way, shape, or form with the military, and we are recording this, as I mentioned, in November of 2025, and we have just heard that the federal government is looking to increase the amount of money that it's spending on Canada's military and armed forces. With a town that has got a lot of history in Kingston, do you see different things coming to the base here that some might not have expected, or is it just going to be built upon what's here? Or do you know?
I don't really know for sure. I can say that if you look at Kingston, CFB Kingston in general, it has modernized quite a bit. And currently, right now, they're in the middle of building a brand new building for the Electronic Warfare Regiment. So we were used to be sharing it with the Signals Regiment for the longest time. And they finally decided that now was the time to build. And that was another project based on like 4 or 5 other projects that have already went up. The new supply building, the hospital's still relatively new. So Kingston itself is come a long way in the last 10 years. So how the budget or any of that stuff's going to affect it, I could not tell you.
None of us could figure that one out. Let's talk about the Legion. Before we talk about Branch 560, let's talk about the Legion in general. It's been around for about a century, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
100 years. What was its original purpose, going way back?
The original purpose, I think, was a lot of veterans who came back from World War One, they were, it kind of worked differently back then. A lot of people, they don't see it nowadays, but back in those days, you had entire towns of fighting age men who went to school together, worked together, and they all went and signed up the same day. And then they all shipped out. And then at the end of the war, some of them came back. And it's some of those people that they looked at some of their buddies who came back but didn't come back all in one piece and said, we got to do something to keep these people's spirits up, help them as much as we can, and just talk about their experiences. And so I think the main reason the Legion was formed was just to keep those people close together and to take care of one another after such a traumatic experience.
Now, these days, people joining from a military background, people who fought in various eras of wars, not just World War I or World War II, you have active service members who are involved in the Legion, members of the RCMP. What has that done to the purpose of the Legion? Has it changed a lot from back in its early days to what it is now, generally speaking?
Once again, not an easy question to answer. Even when I was a young private and I went to go to a Legion once, I wasn't allowed in because I wasn't a member of that particular Legion at that time. Now, I think at those times, most of the Legions were booming with a lot of people, and they thought the good times would never end type thing. And then things started happening. People just started getting older, and then the membership started to dwindle. So, I guess, it's just...
to open up the door to other people.
Yeah. But since then, it's been a lot more welcoming. Like all Legions are different; they're autonomous anyway. So, we encourage the young people to come out to the Legions. But that's a tough question because all the Legions they follow the same set of bylaws, but they might personality wise they've got their own personality that goes with each Legion branch.
Do you find that younger vets or people who have just joined the forces or been in the forces a short time are still coming out to the Legion? Or is that a tough sled for the Legion to get?
Not as much nowadays. Yeah. When I first started coming to the Legion, every odd person had a cell phone. Maybe 1 in 3 households had a computer. The internet, what was that? So there was nothing to do. So we come to the Legion, talk with people, and the Legion usually closed early, so I'd come here, have fun, and then go downtown too. So
Now, why did you join the Legion way back at the beginning of your time here?
Well, I've been coming here about 10 years, and I was just sitting with a few people at the number 9 branch over on Barrack Street. I think it was on a Remembrance Day, actually. So we were all, the base was invited down, and if you remember the size of that building, it was pretty huge, and it was pretty much packed with military people on Remembrance Day. And we just happened to be sitting talking to some people in the Legion, and they, said it would be great if you joined. So me and my wife, we decided to get the application, and we signed up for it there. So yeah, it's just, and my dad was also, he was a very pro-Legion, pro-Poppy as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you're talking to vets who come to the Legion today, what kind of feeling do you get from them that the Legion gives them today? People that you run into.
I come across all from yes, it provides a lot, to some who are kind of bitter and they don't think that the Legion's doing enough for them.
Yeah.
So, all I can say is that the Legion is trying their hardest to appease everybody, but it is definitely an uphill battle.
Yeah. You can never please everybody.
No.
Doesn't matter where you are. Branch 560 is the branch you're in now,
Right.
and that's where we are recording this particular episode. How long has it been here in the city?
In the city, if my history serves me correctly, they started off in 1956. It was a bunch of a few people got together, decided to form a new legion. There was one downtown already, but whatever their reasons were, I think it was just because it was so packed all the time. So in 1956, they opened up 560 Legion, and that was, if I remember correctly, on Princess and Ontario Street. It's somewhere in that area.
Yeah.
I do know that the 560 Legion went through some horrible times with 2 fires. Must have been different codes back then.
Now, how many legions are there in town?
Right now, there's 2. There's us, and then there's the 631 out in Collins Bay.
Okay. Now, typically from legion to legion, you mentioned earlier that they all abide by the same sort of bylaws. What separates one, like in Kingston, there's only the 2, but in other communities where there may be more than 2, what would separate them? Like, why would you have more than 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 in a city?
It could be a generation gap thing,
Okay.
just a different way of thinking. And also, I think a territorial thing for how big the city area is. So
The geography.
yeah, I mean, like when 560 Legion came about, the number 9 wasn't that far away from it, so there was 2 legions right close to each other, and who knows what the reason was that they wanted to form their own legion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it could have, for all we know, it could have been the World War I vets weren't looking at the World War II vets the same way, and they said, "Well, that's it. We're going to set up our own legion."
We don't like the look of those guys. Yeah. Now, I gather that membership in legions has been opened up to members of the community who may not have any affiliation with the military.
That's correct.
When did that happen?
That I could not tell you when that
Okay.
exactly happened. I do know that we got 3 levels of membership. So the ordinary is your RCMP and your forces military people, and then there's associate, and I believe associate's been around for a while, and that's direct relation to a veteran, and that's how they got signed in. But they'd have to be sponsored to get into it, and then affiliate. I would not be able to tell you when they started letting, and that was probably something that happened differently at different legions.
What does that do, or what did it do to the legions in general, that mix of people that's been expanded?
I wouldn't say it did anything. There's 2 sides of the fence on that.
Mm-hmm.
In one regards, it probably kept a lot of legions open, you know, because it's the people who are joining tend to be people who are still heavy supporters of the Legion, and they actively help in the Poppy campaign, raising money, supporting of veterans and stuff like that. So you got that side, but then you got the other side, the veterans who are thinking, well, these civilians they don't got our best interests in their in the branch or in veterans in general. And what they're thinking is that they don't know what we were talking about earlier. They don't understand, the civilians don't understand what the military went through,
Yeah.
and what support they kind of need. And you know, back even when I first joined, it was like suck it up buttercup type stuff, right? So
And now there's politics, and there's politics in every organization.
there always is politics, yeah.
There are various events that you stage in this particular branch that the community is able to come to. What sorts of things do you do here
Well,
to bring people together?
to bring people together, well, first we try to make the environment as receptive as possible. We open up our doors to the public. We're an open legion. So back in the day, you used to have to sign in or get somebody to sponsor you in. We let people in, and we're hoping that they'll like what the purposes are of the Legion and want to join and help out in that way. But we hold weekly dances, weekly karaoke. We got sports that are for people to play. We try to have some fun leagues, get the community involved. And then also we try to do a lot of fundraising for the community as well. And all the more reason, the more people we can have in, the more volunteers we can have.
Mm-hmm. And I know that you give community groups the opportunity to meet here, for instance, and you support financially some of the community groups around town.
Yes.
And you talk about the facilities that you have here, and you mustn't forget the patio out back, which is a nice spot.
Nice spot, yes.
To have things, yeah. Of course, that applies to the summertime. The Poppy campaign is something that most people would know the Legion for. And since it is November when we are recording this, we can talk a little bit about that. The proceeds from the sales of the poppies or the donations go where?
They only go to veterans' causes.
Yep.
So it has to be an approved charity or an approved activity. So if a veteran's in need, we can do emergency supply kind of stuff. The one of the biggest misconceptions about the Poppy Fund money is that it could be used for anything in the Legion, and that's simply not true. Mm-hmm. It is very strictly controlled. Legions have closed their doors because they've run out of money, but they'll still have $90,000 in their Poppy Fund. Mm-hmm. So it'll get turned over to command, and then they'll divvy up the money to the veterans' causes.
And what do you do to raise money for the Legion itself?
To raise money, we rely a lot on bar sales.
Yeah.
We have a ways and means person who tries to do fundraisers. It's trying to mostly get the community involved in the place and pitch in and just have a good time, while also keeping the building open.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we'll remind people once again that membership is open, and if people are interested in this particular branch, what we'll do in the liner notes of the podcast is put up an email address for them to contact the Legion at, so they can get more information.
Sure.
I want to thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank you for walking us through your career and your passion for the work that the Legion continues to do. And it's clear that Branch 560 plays a huge role in the community, not just for veterans, but for the wider Kingston area as well. Thank you for your service, your time today, and everything you do to keep the Legion strong. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave. It's been a pleasure.
My guest in this episode, Leo Lund, currently serving as the past president of the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 560 here in Kingston, Ontario. As always, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend and consider rating and subscribing wherever you get your podcasts. It helps others discover the show. This episode was recorded in November of 2025. I'll be back soon with another conversation.
The theme music for the podcast is Stasis Oasis, written and performed by Kingston musician Tim Aylesworth. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions about any of the episodes, please send a note to thekingstonianpodcast at gmail.com. For details on upcoming guests, follow us on Facebook. The Kingstonian Podcast is hosted by Dave Cunningham and produced in Kingston, Ontario, Canada.